You've probably heard people talking about the Durkee Street lot in the DRI. Though a lot's being said, what's really going on? Today we're going to be breaking down the history of the DRI and seeing exactly how we got to where we are with it today. In order to tell this story, we have to go all the way back to 2016. Justin Bieber's Love Yourself was topping the charts. The Chicago Cubs broke their 71-year-long curse to win the World Series, and Jim Calhoun was the mayor of Plattsburgh. On April 7th of that year, Governor Andrew Cuomo launched the $100 million Downtown Revitalization Initiative, or the DRI, which was described as a comprehensive approach to transform communities ripe for development into vibrant neighborhoods where the next generation of New Yorkers will want to live and work. The 2016 DRI guidebook stated that downtowns must have sufficient local community and public official support in order to develop and implement their strategic investment plan. Was there sufficient community support? Let's take a look. On May 27th, Plattsburgh submitted its DRI application to the REDC. This application highlighted some early ideas about the development of the Durkee Street lot, which included working with the Plattsburgh Housing Authority to make affordable housing units, as well as a civic center and more green space. But we'll get into that a little later. In July, Governor Cuomo announced Plattsburgh as one of the winners of $10 million in DRI grant money. People were excited, but we still had to figure out just what to do with all of that money. In September 2016, a 6-month-long planning process began, and this is where things began to get a little complicated. That 6-month planning process resulted in an 80-page long strategic investment plan that was sent to the state for approval. This plan would be used to select which projects would be given a portion of the $10 million. However, from this whole planning process, we only have 4 instances on record with any documented direct input from community members. 3 were surveys, which acted more like market studies, and the other was a dot poll that happened at a meeting held in the Angel College Center at SUNY Plattsburgh. Out of 30 different projects, developing the Durkee Street lot into a mixed-use city center received between 1 and 2% of the overall votes. Despite those low numbers, when submitting their investment plan, the city said that the Durkee Street development had moderate community support. Now, here's the kicker. Through FOIL requests, it was discovered that the data from this poll was never reported to the state, even though that same poll was presented as evidence of having conducted research to determine public support for the development project. The original draft of their plan actually said that there was strong community support, but the one member of the planning committee that voted against the project spoke out against that wording and had it changed. If the data was thrown out and never reported to the state, how did the city justify saying that there was moderate support for developing the Durkee Street lot? Right now, over 1,200 citizens and 60 downtown Plattsburgh business owners have signed petitions rejecting the development of the lot. If 60 downtown business owners are against it, do you think there is a moderate number of them supporting it? Anyway, let's move forward. By this time, Colin Reed had defeated Jim Calhoun to become the mayor of Plattsburgh. Early in his campaign, Reed acknowledged that other projects were being favored by the public, and he also penned an editorial in the Press Republican where he said, "We should be building our downtown around people rather than the build it and they will come mentality that we might have used in urban economics 50 years ago." We'll see if he stayed true to that idea. The city's strategic investment plan was submitted to the state in March of 2017, and on May 25th, Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul announced the winning projects that would be funded through the DRI money. These included a food incubator, a shared commercial kitchen, enhancement to riverfront amenities, developing the Dock Street Waterfront District, downtown streetscape improvements, advancing the Art and Innovation Studio, a marketing, branding, and signage strategy for downtown, Strand Center capital improvements, marketing and branding, and of course, the Durkee Street mixed-use development. During his campaign to become mayor, Reed said in an interview with the North Country Public Radio that there just hadn't been enough public input in the city's proposal. At other times, he warned that a large mixed-use development would suck the life out of downtown and stated that it doesn't make a lot of sense to build a mansion in the center of our city because its foundations are crumbling. After becoming the mayor, he changed his tune, stating that the Durkee development is akin to putting up a bit of paradise. Mayor Reed also claimed that the state mandated the development from the beginning when the city submitted its ideas for the project in its DRI application. That's something other city officials have claimed as well, that their hands are tied because the state is mandating the development of the Durkee Street lot. When concerned citizens and members of groups like Strong Towns Plattsburgh tried to open up more opportunities for public input on the DRI projects, they were met with resistance. City officials promised meetings and opportunities for input that just never happened. To develop the lot, something called an RFP has to be made. That's a request for proposals. To put it simply, this is a document that gets sent out to prospective developers. They make bids on the job, and we select one of them to develop the lot. Despite promising to do so, the city never gave out any information on how the public can give any input on creating the RFP for the Durkee Street lot development. I mentioned Strong Towns Plattsburgh earlier. They are a group who formed to advocate for grassroots, small-scale, and diversified development. By November of 2018, they were getting fed up with the lack of community involvement in the Public Advisory Committee, which is the committee that was developing the RFP for the Durkee lot project. They demanded a seat on the committee, which they got. But only after the RFP was written, the original PAC was dissolved, and an all-new committee with no actual input on the RFP was formed. The original PAC disbanded in secret, and we don't even have a record of who was on it. I said earlier that over 60 downtown business owners and 1,200 citizens had signed petitions against the current version of the Durkee Street project. It was Strong Towns Plattsburgh who organized those petitions. They want to push for what they see as more responsible ways to handle the grant and the development of downtown. Like the preservation of public land, a community benefit agreement to make sure that this whole thing actually benefits our community, and when we do develop the Durkee Street lot, to subdivide parking into smaller parcels that are less risky to develop. When it came to changes in the RFP, the city wasn't hearing it. They said that the RFP had already been sent out and that it would be unfair to change it now, despite the fact that the terms of the RFP gave the city every right to change it whenever they wanted to. Now, we're jumping around a bit. There's a lot of twists and turns to this story that we're not able to cover in a short video. As of May 2019, the RFP has gone out to developers, and only one company wanted to take on the project. They are called prime companies. The city rushed into a deal with them without allowing time for further review of prime companies. This is a huge project, and it's surprising that the city wouldn't extend their window to see if they could reel in a few other proposals rather than just going with the first company to bite. As it stands right now, Prime Companies wants to construct a 2-building development with 127 market rate 1 to 3 bedroom apartments and 10 to 15 fully furnished long-term stay corporate apartments. 13,515 square feet of commercial space on the first floor, leaving some interior space for the Plattsburgh Farmers Market that they will have to rent out. Prime Companies is receiving $4.3 of the $10 million in DRI funds. They're also getting the land that holds the Durkee Street lot for free. There will be approximately 143 parking spaces with an additional 70 underground parking spaces. Todd Curley, a representative for Prime Companies, said that the residential units would start at more than $1,000 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment. He also said that the company couldn't commit to any public parking spaces. Community Development Director Matthew Miller said he hopes for around 30 public parking spaces. The Durkee Street lot has 289 spaces right now. Losing over 250 parking spaces would probably have a huge effect on downtown Plattsburgh. Strong Towns Plattsburgh suggested we develop a parking committee to figure out a clear plan of action before any changes to parking were set in motion. The city denied this request. Instead, they spent $500,000 on the Glens Falls National Bank so that they could tear it down and turn it into a parking lot, which goes directly against the advice laid out in a $50,000 parking study that the city commissioned in August of 2017. Mayor Reed makes $50,000 a year as a board member of that bank, but no one in the city saw any conflict of interest on that deal. The city overestimated how many spots they could get out of that plot of land because they assumed that the buildings adjacent to the bank would be willing to give up their private parking lots. Their response was no. Oh yeah, and the building is also full of asbestos, which Strong Towns urged them to inspect for before purchasing. So on top of the $500,000 spent on buying the building, we're gonna have to pay even more to have the asbestos tested and removed. Hazmat testing and getting an appraisal on a building you are about to buy are very routine steps, but for some reason, the city decided to go ahead and just buy the building. After buying the bank, the city did finally form a parking committee, and then went ahead and implemented a new paid parking permit program without any input from the parking committee. This committee was supposed to have a seat reserved for a downtown community member. So far, getting input from the community isn't something that the city has been doing a great job at. So, what did they do with that reserved seat? They gave it to Ethan Vinson, who is the DRI grant coordinator. Again, they didn't see any conflict of interest there. The city first claimed that knocking down the bank would give us 300 new parking spaces. But after it all shook out, they are now estimating closer to 115 spaces. Every week, there are new ideas about how to make more parking spaces. Some ideas include turning two-way streets into one-way streets and reserving the closed lane for diagonal parking. Another plan included making the sidewalks smaller so there'd be more places to park on the road. These ideas are changing so fast that it's hard to talk about it all here, but at least we know the parking committee is trying their best. So, that's the long and the short of it. And there are changes occurring all the time. Needless to say, there's more to this story than what we've provided for this story. So check out the links that we've provided below. And if you think that this video is important, or you liked it, and it's good for you and your family and the people that you care about that live in downtown Plattsburgh, New York, you should share it. Share this video. Do it. Thank you.